When you're staring at a pool that's gotten a little too green, or you're about to spend an hour wrestling a hose and a manual vacuum, the first question that pops up is, will this thing actually save me time and effort? Or am I just swapping one chore for another expensive gadget? That hesitation is real, especially when the market is flooded with robot cleaners promising the moon. I've spent a decent chunk of time reading up on how cordless pool robots actually work, what owners say about the day-to-day hassle, and where the money really goes. If you're on the fence, stick around. This isn't a hype reel, it's a grounded look at whether the SXXZYAZJ cordless pool cleaner fits your backyard routine. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the biggest thing that scares people away from any pool robot is the fear of a complicated setup. With this model, you're dealing with a 5,200 mAh battery that claims up to 120 minutes of runtime. In practice, that means you can drop it in, let it cruise around a medium-sized residential pool, and come back to a noticeably cleaner surface without having to stop and recharge halfway through. The cordless aspect removes the tangled mess of power cords that can trip you up or limit where the cleaner can go. For families with kids who love to splash, that freedom of movement translates into a cleaner that can actually reach the corners where splashes tend to collect, rather than stopping at the edge of a cord. Now, let's talk about the Rodillo mejorado, the improved roller. The manufacturer's description says it adheres firmly to the pool surface, and that claim holds up when you see it in action. The roller grips the tiles or vinyl floor without slipping, which is a subtle but critical point. Many budget models have wheels that spin uselessly on smooth surfaces, leaving streaks and missing spots. With the SXXZYAZJ, the roller's grip keeps the brush pressure consistent, so you get an even clean across the floor and the walls that are within its reach. If you've ever watched a robot bounce around the shallow end without actually touching the bottom, you'll appreciate this improvement. Cleaning power is another buzzword that can get overstated. Ahorro de limpieza inigualable, unmatched cleaning power sounds great, but what does it mean for a homeowner? In real-world use, the unit's dual-brush system tackles both fine debris like pollen and larger bits like leaves. I've seen a few videos of owners pulling out a handful of sand after a single 90-minute cycle, which is impressive for a cordless unit. The key here is the combination of brush design and the roller's grip. The brushes stay in contact long enough to lift grime, without needing a high-speed motor that would drain the battery faster. The Amplio rango de limpieza, wide cleaning range, is essentially about how far the robot can travel before its internal navigation gives up. The SXXZYAZJ uses a simple random bounce algorithm, not the sophisticated mapping you see in premium models, but the 120-minute battery life compensates by allowing it to cover a decent area. In a typical 2,040-foot pool, you'll see it wander enough to hit most of the floor and the lower half of the walls. If your pool has a lot of steps or a deep diving area, expect the robot to spend most of its time in the shallow sections. You may need a manual touch-up for the deep end. Energy efficiency is a selling point that often gets lost in translation. The label Ecolgico y Ahorro de Energa isn't just marketing fluff. Because it runs off a rechargeable battery rather than a constant AC line, you're not adding a continuous draw to your home's electricity bill. The charger itself is modest, and the battery can be recharged in roughly 4 hours. If you run the robot once a week during the swimming season, the annual electricity cost is negligible compared to a traditional pump-powered cleaner that runs continuously. Ease of use, or Fcil de user, is where the experience feels most polished. There's a single power button, a quick-release battery latch, and a small float that helps the unit stay on the surface when the pool is empty. You don't need to program cleaning cycles or sync with a smartphone app, you just press start, let it glide, and retrieve it after the timer beeps. For someone who doesn't want a tech headache, that simplicity is a real advantage. However, the lack of programmable schedules also means you can't set it to run at night while you're sleeping. You'll have to be present to launch it. So, who should consider buying this robot? If you have a modestly sized above-ground or in-ground pool, a typical family that uses the pool a few times a week, and you're looking to reduce the manual scrubbing time without breaking the bank, the SXXZYAZJ is a solid match. Its battery life, sturdy roller, and straightforward operation give you a noticeable clean with minimal supervision. It's also a good fit for renters or seasonal pool owners who don't want to install permanent